welcome to the Total Soccer Show and our latest foray into the listener questions mailbag. On this episode, we're asking how would the USMNT fare if it had to qualify for next year's World Cup. We're debating the players you want on your team for chemistry reasons, and we're going into the TSS Time Machine one more time. Do join us. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today, Power Trio. Joe Lowry's here. Hello, Joe.
If we're going into the time machine one more time, does that imply it's the last time? And if so, could we still, in the past, go back in time and change that decision so we could go in the time machine again? How does this work, Ryan?
Too early for that question, Joe. Paradoxical time stuff.
Fair enough.
Let's save that for later. That's an afternoon conversation, okay?
I get that. Well, let's get to Graham, because it's afternoon where he is. Graham, can you explain all this, please?
Graham Ruthven.
I'm wondering, are we using Mr. Fusion Time Machine, or are we using Back to the Future 1 original Time Machine? Or are we using the train one?
The train.
From
It's
number
the train.
3. Oh, okay, cool.
The Jules Verne. Is that what it was
Yeah.
called? There we go.
I think that was one. Was that not the name of one of the sons? One of the sons
They were
at the
Jules
end
and
is called
Verne,
Jules.
weren't they?
Yeah, it was Jules and Verne, yeah, that's right.
That's it. Very good.
We can call the
Very
train
good,
whatever we want it to call it.
When I was a wee lad, Graham, I think the first time I ever went to the United States, and I went to Orlando, Florida, at the theme park, they had the train by the ride.
They do. It's still there.
Oh, is it still
still
there?
there.
It's very exciting.
Yeah, and the
very
car.
exciting to see that.
And the rumor is, Ryan, that they're bringing back an attraction, and they're gonna. Sorry, we've gone into nerd talk.
Great,
about theme parks
Scott.
Here.
Are
We'll
you
keep it there
serious?
on Patreon.
Taylor,
Yeah.
I'm missing you already.
Yes, this is what happens when Taylor leaves the scene.
They're going to do tennis next, they promised before we started recording.
As if anyone doesn't want to hear Back to the Future chat. Come on now. Come on.
Greatest song of all time. Still is to this day.
Greatest trilogy.
Yeah.
You give me that? Yep.
Oh, I absolutely will. You don't need to convince me otherwise.
Take that,
Joe, Back to the
Sharknado
Future
trilogy.
opinions? Yeah, I was thinking what else is up there.
I think Star Wars, arguably. Indiana Jones. Oh, they've all done more. They've all done more.
Yeah. Yeah, they sort of aged themselves out of that conversation. I mean, you could break it down into trilogy, I suppose, for Star Wars, like 3 different trilogies, but it feels like we're getting too complicated at that point.
The only one that came close was Toy Story, and then they spoiled it by doing a 4th one. So, doesn't count. If there's more than 3, it's not a trilogy.
Yep, fine.
Have they done a 5th one? Feels like they've done a 5th one.
They're going to. Of course they are.
God bless them. There we go. All right, let's get to the soccer stuff, shall we? Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is the best way to support the Total Soccer Show. It gets you bonus content, including bonus episodes, bonus listener questions, bonus video content, Graham driving to faraway Scottish places to watch soccer, and access to our Discord server. All the cool kids hanging out in there. It's great fun. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show.
There was a time machine joke in there, and me driving to Elgin at the weekend. It's like, going back.
Graham gunned it to 88 to watch a disappointing loss for his team. And, wouldn't
Wouldn't
change
have
the
it any other way.
newspaper. Yeah. That'd be great if you could do that. Change the headlines with your car.
If only I had the almanac, I could have skipped Saturday.
Very good. All right, let's get to the listener questions, shall we? Brian Scarborough's been in touch with this one. This is a very, very interesting question, Joe Lowry. Would the USMNT qualify for the upcoming World Cup if it were not a host nation? Now, Brian sent this before the Japan game. I don't know if that would influence the asking of the question. Probably not. I suppose, Joe, when we frame this question, do we have to also ask if Canada and Mexico also have to qualify?
I interpreted this as if Canada and Mexico were hosting the World Cup along with another CONCACAF nation, and we swapped the U.S. out for that other nation. You can interpret it different ways. I'm okay with any of those things. Before I answer this question, it is a little wild to me how hard the Japan win has changed some of the sentiment around the U.S.
We're desperate.
And Ryan,
We're desperate.
I guess that's what it is, and there are good reasons to feel a little bit of encouragement from that game, and we talked about it at the time. I think Balogun is that he's back and actually firing under Pochettino is probably the biggest bit of the bunch, but man, it still is kind of jarring to me about how much we have indexed on that particular game. I think the U.S. is better than they've shown for most under Pochettino's tenure, and I think a win over our rotated Japan team is probably right where the U.S. is right now. But I'll just speak for myself and say that I was not all that swayed from one to the other. No, even before the high of the Japan game, or whatever it was for me, my answer to this question would have been yes. It's yes now, it was yes before. CONCACAF is really bad. And I know that what CONCACAF lacks in quality, they make up for in just the worst playing surfaces that you could imagine that the European mind cannot comprehend, right? You guys know that meme? I assume both of you do as yes. Folks from Europe. That is, you see the Dallas Cowboys stadium pop up outside of a giant Walmart parking lot. The European mind cannot comprehend that. It is the same with how hard it is to go and play in El Salvador. At the same time, you get home games in qualifying, and your quality of opposition, especially this time around, guys, is so poor. So I went through and just imagined that instead of the U.S. hosting the World Cup, along with Canada and Mexico, it's Suriname hosting the World Cup along with Canada and Mexico, because we just talked about Suriname actually doing quite well in qualifying right now. I think that was last week. We mentioned that on the bonus show. And so I thought, all right, let's put the U.S. into Suriname's shoes for qualifying. So the way qualifying worked for CONCACAF this time around is you get split effectively into 6 groups of 5 teams. And that's the first round. And if you're one of the top 2 teams in your group, you advance to the next round. And that next round is where we are currently. So Suriname made it out of their group in the first round of qualifying. And the teams that they had to play were not very good. You go through and look at this list. They make it to the second round of teams after going through El Salvador, Puerto Rico, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Anguilla. You go to the third round, and all of a sudden Suriname are topping their group with El Salvador, Panama, and Guatemala. Now, those are not total slouches as far as opponents go. We saw some of those teams against the U.S. at the Gold Cup. We've seen Panama against the U.S. in the past. At the same time, getting enough wins, getting enough points to get out of that group is so imminently possible for this U.S. team, even if Pochettino didn't approach anything differently than what he has done so far and called in the exact same rosters he's called in so far, which he would not do in this scenario, by the way. Even if that were to be the case, the U.S. is still the much better team on quality, and I'd have to believe that with enough home games and something on the road, the U.S. is getting through.
Yeah. Graham, do you concur?
Yeah, completely. The answer for me is yes. I kind of looked at it slightly differently. I don't think it really matters which way you look at it. The answer is probably yes. It might not have been yes. So the way I looked at it wasn't the US coming out of the 3 hosts for 2026. It was almost like that. It was a completely different World Cup. So let's say it was like 2030, where it's not the US, Mexico, or Canada. It's oh man, I was going to ring off the countries that are hosting in 2030, and then I forgot that there's like 10 of them. Who is it?
We don't have an hour. We don't have an hour and a half for you to name all the countries.
Hold on, I want to do it. Spain, Portugal, Morocco, Uruguay, Argentina, Chile, and Paraguay. Right? It's man, that's wild. I can't believe that's actually happening.
We're out of time for today. Yep.
Yeah, it's time for a break. That's the way that I looked at this question. So as the new format, the expanded format, has 6 automatic qualification spots. There's also 2 possible qualification paths through the Intercontinental Playoff as well for CONCACAF, which I'm not going to lie, reminding myself of that fact really did hit home how much I wish Scotland was in CONCACAF. I might actually apply to CONCACAF on the Scottish FA's behalf. But if it was
Australia, just switch, just if you feel like it.
Yeah, when I worked at STV, we actually applied on the Scottish FA's behalf to CONMEBOL for Scotland to take part in the Copa America one year, and we made a story out of it, and we got a reply back from CONMEBOL, and they were like, no, this application needs to come from the Scottish FA directly. So, yeah, I think that's still in there.
Did you get also a letter from the Scottish FA saying, what are you doing?
Yeah, I do actually remember getting the phone call. It wasn't me that got the phone call, but we were quite tight with the Scottish FA's marketing and media person at that time, and Darryl was slightly bemused by that story, but he saw the funny side of it. So yeah, that's the thing we actually did at STV.
Hashtag journalism.
Yeah, if it was a 32-team World Cup, obviously it was 4 places for CONCACAF, and the US can't be complacent because in 2018 they literally did not qualify for a World Cup then. So it might have been different if that was the case, because obviously it would be Canada and Mexico. Panama keep beating the US, so it's possible they would finish ahead of the US, and in that case all you would need would be like a couple Keylor Navas masterclasses for Costa Rica and to finish ahead of the US. So yeah, it might have been a bit of a scrap there, but that isn't the case. It's a 48-team tournament, and as long as the format remains this way, and I don't think the genie is ever going back in the bottle, the US will qualify for every single World Cup. I am pretty confident in saying that.
Yeah, and the thing is, we think about 2018 because it is still quite recent in memory. It still looms large. But this U.S. team, even the weird kind of patchwork Frankenstein-y squads that Pochettino's called in, for the sake of getting to know his pool, right? That's what Pochettino's been doing. Even those squads are still better than that 2018 team that failed to qualify, right? Like, that team was so bad. It was a really, really poor team. We talked about the lost generation quite a bit. We talked about it last week. That team felt the effects of that in a very real way. That is not nearly as much of a challenge now. Now, has this U.S. group progressed in the way that any U.S. fan would want since 2022? No, of course not, right? And I do not think that Mauricio Pochettino has nailed a whole lot of aspects of his tenure so far. But those things can be true, and CONCACAF being bad enough can still also be true. to the point where, Graham, as you said, the days of the U.S. missing World Cups should be behind them. And frankly, even if the U.S. isn't developing the next Christian Pulisic every cycle, which they're not going to, it's not going to matter. And they're still going to be at all these tournaments.
Yeah. But, you never say never because big teams do miss World Cups, Joe.
Yeah, but it's hard for me to separate the U.S. being a CONCACAF compared to the team that came to mind there is Italy, right? I mean, qualifying from UEFA is just a different beast. I know that. I think there is like this insecurity among USMNT fans of everybody thinks qualifying from CONCACAF is easy because you have to beat El Salvador to get there, and to qualify at a UEFA you have to beat the Scotlands and the Hungaries and the North Macedonias, teams that have some higher quality players. But it's just true. Like, it is true that qualifying from UEFA is way harder than qualifying from CONCACAF if you are a team that sort of expects to be at a World Cup like in Italy. There are hard things about qualifying from CONCACAF, and there are things that can humble you. But man, there is no confederation of the primary ones that I would rather qualify for a World Cup from than CONCACAF.
There we go. Brian Scarborough, thank you very much for your question. We've got another World Cup question coming up right after we take a quick pause to enjoy these goods and services. Back in a minute. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our listener questions. David McCracken. Quality surname. Love that, David. Given the extra knockout round in the 2026 World Cup, asks David, there will be likely some consequential suspensions for yellow card accumulation. Which of the top teams do you think might be impacted? Interesting one here, Graham. Obviously, another round. We've got a round of 32, of course, in this World Cup. So another round for players to accumulate yellow cards. And I suppose, logically, red cards as well. But 2 yellow cards is a match suspension. That traditionally is cleaned off at the semi or the quarterfinal into the semi-final stage, isn't it? So we have a round of 32 for teams to mess up and accumulate more yellow cards here. There is the potential for some poophousery to be unduly punished here, is there not?
There is. I'm just never in favour of this sort of yellow card accumulation at major tournaments. I don't know whether that makes me a soft touch, and then I guess it calls into question, well, what's the point of like yellow cards if it doesn't amount to something? But in the past, there have been tournaments where it's like 2 yellows from like 4 games, 3 or 4 games for a suspension. And the fact of the matter is, these games, these single games at these tournaments just matter more, right, to players, and the consequences can be greater than it would be in like a league season. So I would be very lenient, and if I were FIFA, which I often ponder what that would be like.
I wish you were.
So do I.
Scotland would be incomparable if that were the case.
Yeah,
You have more power.
Or CONCACAF, one of the two. I would just have like them wiped. I don't know, like after the group stage and then after the semi-finals. I don't know. I don't like seeing players missing big games for suspensions. But anyway, for this question, I looked at teams that are relying on a single player, and then tried to find some players that I could envisage getting some bookings at a tournament. So one of the first places I landed was I went to Argentina, not literally, but for a thought experiment for this question. And obviously the biggest player to lose for them, even at this stage of his career, I think would be Lionel Messi.
McAllister. Go on.
Yeah. Are we talking about Alexis or Kevin? Which of the two McAllisters?
Well, Kevin, come on. Obviously.
Yeah. The whole family. They're playing tickets here in the trap.
Talking about losing somebody.
Yeah, he'll get lost in the airport. But Christian Romero, he is really important for Argentina. I know he's really important for Spurs, but from everything that I've read and everything that I know about his role for Argentina, I think the best version of Christian Romero is the one that plays international soccer. He is their dominant defender, and he likes a booking, as we know about Christian Romero. He picked up 4 yellows in World Cup qualifying, and so he would be a big loss for a knockout game for Argentina. I'm maybe stretching the boundaries here with some of the top teams, as David's question outlines, but I stayed in CONMEBOL. I went to Ecuador next. That then led me to Moises Caicedo, who was one of the most booked players in the Premier League last season. And he is just so important to Ecuador in the centre of the pitch. They do actually have a decent level of talent. They're one of my kind of... I think I did a piece for FOTMob last week on like World Cup surprise packages. Teams that have already qualified
Ecuador.
that can make an impact at the...
Wait, you think you did it last week, or you did?
I maybe accidentally I did it, I think. So... Ecuador actually do have a decent amount of talent. They've got Piero Hincapié, of course, has just gone to Arsenal. William Pacho as well, PSG central defender. Maybe not quite at that level, but Pedro Vite plays for Ecuador as well. But I would argue that Moises Caicedo is still their most important player, and their two-way ability on both sides of the ball is so important for them in the centre of the pitch. So a suspension for him would have a huge impact. And then if I can really stretch the boundary of top team here, if this is a big if Scotland were to qualify,
yes,
I think John McGinn would be someone that I could envisage being suspended for a knockout game, unfortunately. And that would be a huge blow, because when Scotland play well, which doesn't happen all that often, certainly recently, but when it does happen, McGinn invariably plays well. He's the player who sets the tone with his work ethic, and he links the midfield with the attack, and we don't have a top-level number 9, so we need goals from the midfield, and John McGinn is our top scorer currently out of active players, but he picks up a lot of bookings, so that would be a concern for me as well.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, my mind went straight to Romero as well. Actually, I think that's a very astute pick. And also Caicedo. I didn't know that. Yeah, he loves getting a booking in the Premier League for sure. Joe, where did you land?
I landed first at a macro level. Maybe this will be a great thing to clip, and then we can come back to it in less than a year's time, and I can sound like a fool. I don't imagine this is going to be a huge deal, right? I mean, yellow cards are quite infrequent, all things considered, and I know that the tournament provokes different emotions from people, and there's different crazy weird things that can happen. I'm not saying that this is a scenario that is impossible. I'm just saying I don't imagine that the extra round will completely transform how this tournament goes on. I would be more surprised than not, probably, if there was one of these players that we're about to mention missing a key game for their team because of the extra round of games and the yellow card rule. Now, also, I don't know if you guys saw, I couldn't find anywhere officially what the yellow card rules are going to be for this upcoming summer. So I wanted to note that as well. We are assuming that what Ryan laid out with them being wiped clean after the quarterfinals heading into the semifinals, so that no one is then suspended for back-to-back yellows in the quarters and the semis for the final itself. We're assuming that that's going to play out again. I don't know if that's true or not. FIFA could change that, and honestly, that wouldn't totally surprise me. But anyway, to answer the question, I also stretched far away from top teams, because part of the benefit of being a top team is that when you lose a player, you're kind of fine. Right? I mean, that's, or at least mostly fine. So I had a hard time imagining what this would look like for France or for a Spain. I mean, those, it's so difficult with some of those teams.
Yeah. Oh no, we're going to have to use one of our other world-class players
fine.
in that position.
Yeah, nobody wants to hear that. I mean,
so hang on, are we ratting off the Argentina shout of Romero?
No, that was the only one that I thought was applicable, because I do think centre-back is a bit of a weak position for them. But otherwise, I agree with Joe.
Okay. Yeah. So I dropped down a level and just purely thought about, should this team be at the World Cup and lose their best player, would they be in big trouble? And the answer for all of these teams, I think, is yes. Bosnia and Herzegovina right now are on top of their World Cup qualifying group in UEFA. If they were to lose Edin Dzeko, that would hurt them. He is still scoring goals for them. He scored 3 goals in their last World Cup qualifying window for them. Good results for Bosnia and Herzegovina. Dzeko is still extremely important to them, and he's still a very, very good soccer player. If Uzbekistan were to lose Kusanov, or I thought of another one, Eldor Shomurodov, who is their captain. He's their top scorer. He's one of the only players in that Uzbekistan squad to play outside of their native country as well. That would be a big blow. Iran, if they were to lose Mehdi Taremi, I think would be a big blow, even as he continues to age. And then the most obvious one is, the scariest one, I think, of all these, is Norway if they are to lose Erling Haaland. There's still talent in that team, but they get a whole lot more appetizing to play against as soon as you take away that threat in behind. I think if you're looking at teams that could really be negatively impacted by this, you have to drop down into that next tier of teams, more into the hopeful category, rather than we expect to make a deep run sort of category. And even then, like I said before, I'm just, at this stage, a little skeptical that this will be a big thing.
I mean, Norway's an interesting one. Depending on the draw, they could maybe get through, right? They could maybe, because they'd still have Alexander Sorloth, and I know Odegaard's not a striker, but in terms of
there's still talent there, no
Oscar
doubt.
Bob. What about and this is where I don't actually know how they're getting on in World Cup qualifying and how likely it is they're going to qualify, but I think of Georgia at the last Euros. If they were to lose Kvaradona, I mean, they've got no one even close to him on that, to come into that team on that level. So that would be a huge one as well.
But are those the kind of players who you think would be in danger of getting yellow? So does Erling Haaland touch the ball enough to get booked?
No, but when he does, it's impactful.
Bodies people enough. Throws the ball at the back of their head enough.
No, it's a great point, Ryan. I think you raise a totally fair response there. I just think answering this question is really hard. I don't think there are a ton of super clear-cut answers to this. Romero, I think, is the best shot of them all. Graham, I love that you tossed out McGinn, because I was wondering for each of us and our national teams who that player would be that we would least like to lose, or who the player is that we think would be most likely to pick up cards to get suspended. For me, the answer to the first question is Christian Pulisic. Like, if you take him out of this U.S. team still, even with some of his flaws, and even if that makes your set pieces better, I still think you're missing some opportunities there. I feel like the yellow card most likely player still is Tyler Adams in this team, or maybe whoever the other center back is next to Chris Richards, because they're not going to be very good and they'll be trailing the game. Graham, is McGinn your pick for both of those categories, or just for the player you would hate to lose the most? It seems the most likely in this circumstance.
Yeah, the latter. I mean, the player that I would hate to lose the most right now would be Scott McTominay, our Ballon d'Or candidate, soon to be winner. I presume that's going to happen later this year. But yeah, he doesn't pick up so many bookings, whereas McGinn is a bit of a walking yellow card. So that would be a blow.
Ryan, who are the answers for England?
It's Jude Bellingham, I think. I could see him getting a few yellows and missing the eventual comprehensive loss to Spain in the round of 16 and getting blamed for it.
Oh man,
we can only dream.
That feels on point.
It's written in the stars. Can't say it.
And in the sun, and in the mirror.
Hey, very good, very good. Joe, who's the USMNT danger man?
Yeah, Pulisic is the one I'd like to lose the least, and I think I said that right. And then Tyler Adams is the one, or the other center back that I'd be scared of the most. Or, to add one more into the equation, Serginho Dest, just like punting the ball somewhere for no reason, feels also like it's not totally off the table. He might be in the middle of that Venn diagram as well.
All right. David McCracken, thank you very much indeed for your question. Jory K comes in with this one. Who are the best chemistry players? Those players who aren't the best or the flashiest, but the team seems to always play better with them on the field. Joe, is this the who's the most boring defensive midfielder in soccer question? Or is it something else?
I think yes, kind of. That is where my mind went first. And it's a hard one to answer because I can still really appreciate the hard work and the difficulty that goes into being a really good, boring defensive midfielder. Like, I don't think Busquets is an acceptable answer here, but there's a reason why that quote is famous of when you watch the game, you don't see Busquets, but when you see Busquets, you see the whole game, right? There's a reason why that's a thing, is because those players at the base of midfield, or even center backs, right, are not in the most interesting areas of the game to watch. They're not in at least the midfielders, they're not in the most important parts of the field at a general level. So you're not always drawn to those players, and I think they get dumped into this category as a result. At the same time, that is kind of where my brain went here. The first one, Graham, can I claim Darlington Nagbe as a chemistry guy?
Sure, yeah.
Yes. Okay, I think he's a little too good maybe to be in this category, and I think there is like a real flashiness to his game. That's why I don't think you can count Busquets, even at a much higher level. Like, Busquets' elegance is amazing to watch. Like, he is so flashy in that way, and Nagbe's kind of similar with that press resistance. But he's recognized as being very good, but his teams are always better for having him on the field, and you're not going to see his impact pop up in the basic stats that you'll see on like a box score, or like a post-game stat sheet that airs up on the screen, right? So I think Nagbe is one of the ones that came to mind for me. If you're looking at the U.S. and to move away from the base of midfield, Tim Weah feels a bit like a chemistry guy. He can play in 47 different positions. Weston McKennie can do the same, but his game is not very flashy. Like, he's played most of his minutes throughout his career as a winger, and the dude doesn't beat opposing fullbacks on the dribble. Like, he just never dribbles by anyone. He is a straight line player. He is someone who likes to combine in tight spots and has a ton of flair to his game, but not in the way you'd expect from a winger, where he is just really savvy moving off the ball and playing these little quick 1-2s. And he's a goal threat, or at least he can be in the right system with the right players around him. I think back to the last World Cup qualifying cycle, and the U.S. were almost always better when Tim Weah was on the field and when he was on the right side, even though he has never been a super productive player for club. I do think we see that with the U.S. And my last one is the most flashy option of them all. Can I call Thomas Muller a chemistry player? Where I want to claim him for two reasons here. The first is the Raumdeuter space exploding stuff that gets talked about all the time. He's good at moving off the ball, which is not a very glamorous thing to do in soccer, but that's the only way I can survive in a pickup game myself. So, like, there is value in that stuff. But beyond that, he seems like a great locker room guy too, right? Now, if we're fitting chemistry, if we're putting that under the chemistry umbrella, which I think we should, by all accounts, Thomas Muller is exactly the kind of player that you want if you're, say, Bayern Munich, and it gets quite boring winning 13 titles in 17 seasons or whatever it's been for them. Having Thomas Muller around to keep things interesting and fresh is underratedly important, I think. And then you toss the on-field stuff and his humor and all that jazz into one bucket. I think Thomas Muller fits in this category, and I think he might be the best of the bunch.
Interesting. Graham, this question drew me back to last weekend's Derby d'Italia, and I was thinking of sort of the men in the middle for Juve and Inter. Like, can we put Barella in this category? Locatelli for Juventus, maybe?
Locatelli's a good shout. I think Barella is almost too good, right? He almost has too much. I don't know if flash is the right term, but he's got too much like game-breaking ability, I think, for this category, which is where I sort of, I mean, you can take this anywhere you like it, like what is a chemistry player. I sort of thought of it as players who make other players around them better. But even that is a flawed criteria because, like, Lionel Messi makes players around him better. So I accept the flaws in maybe my own definition there. But I landed on sort of 2 current players and 1 former player. Or actually, they're all 3 active players, but one has moved on to like the latter part of his career. We don't see so much of him now. I think a lot of managers would mention Mason Mount as like a chemistry player, someone who has been... He's basically made a career for himself as a teacher's pet at like England level and for Chelsea and for Manchester United. And the reason managers like him is he's a good presser, he's got good off the ball movement, he's technically decent and generally facilitates other players around him. Although he did have a decent goal threat in his Chelsea days, that seems to have disappeared in his game since he's moved to Manchester United, which is maybe not completely coincidental. In a similar vein, I think there might be, Joe, you can come back at me on this one.
Sure.
There might be a difference of opinion on this player. I seem to remember that from the past. But I think Frankie de Jong deserves a mention. He is excellent at carrying the ball from deep areas, but when he does that, then he usually passes it on to someone like Pedri or Lamine Yamal and they do something cool in the final third. But he is like a really important part of that process for Barcelona from back to front. So I think he goes unnoticed a lot of the time. But there's a reason that he's played almost 300 games for Barcelona and is still in that team. Like they tried to sell Frankie de Jong numerous times, but not because he's a bad player, but because he earns like 400,000 euros a week and Barcelona don't want to pay that. But they have kept him around. But I think the best chemistry player of recent times isn't a central midfielder, it's an attacker. I think it's Roberto Firmino for Liverpool.
I thought about it.
He was primarily in that team, and look, this is a slightly reductive way to think of Roberto Firmino because he was an exceptional player in his own right, and I always thought he was better in the air than a lot of people gave him credit for. But he was primarily in that team to get the best out of Mane on one side and then Mohamed Salah on the other. And they were like the 2 world-class players that Liverpool had in that front line. And without his sort of withdrawn number 9 role, I don't think that forward line is as frightening as it was for those like 4 or 5 years when he was at Liverpool and he was a starting player for them. So yeah, I think Roberto Firmino might fit into that Thomas Muller bucket as well of the sort of Ron Deutner or whatever that term is, the space filler. He was the Liverpool space filler for a long time.
Graham, that is such a good shout. I kind of dismissed that out of hand as I was thinking about this because I just imagined that he had like a 19, 20, 21 goal season for Liverpool. Never. 15 goals was his highest single scoring season. I just looked it up. And you're 100% right about what his role was supposed to be on that team. He was the connector. And a lot of that stuff was fun to watch. And I think that's maybe also why I kind of dumped it out of this, is because he was doing so much good stuff on the ball all the time. And he was touching the ball quite a bit. But he was the third man on that 3-man totem pole in the front 3. That's a really interesting shout. To go back to de Jong for a second, if we're going to dismiss Barella from this category because he's too good, surely we've got to dismiss Frankie de Jong out of this category. The only argument I can give there in your favor, Graham, is that relative to his teammates, like Barella is better relative to his teammates than de Jong is relative to his teammates, right? So if that's where we're coming from, I get it. But the dude he's really good at soccer. Like he's bad at some things, but he's incredible at so much stuff and is like one of the best players at what he does on the planet, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's just when I think of Barella, and look, I remember we had a discussion not so long ago, maybe a year ago, about Kevin De Bruyne, and I was drastically wrong on his output, on his productivity numbers, and he scored like 100 goals for Manchester City, and that surprised me. So maybe De Jong's sort of like goal numbers and goal contributions would surprise me, but I don't know. I just think of Barella as someone who maybe has more of a game-breaking impact, a slightly further forward than de Jong. But yeah, I mean, there's of course similarities in the way that they're like a valve in the center of the pitch.
But I suppose like compared to Pedri, de Jong looks like he's never played soccer before, you know, because that's how Pedri makes everyone look. So I am on board with that. Speaking of those two, just I watched a really great video on de Jong recently from the Purist Football. It's about de Jong and Pedri, sort of how they play for Barcelona. just go watch it. It's good. It's a good YouTube channel. It's not ours, but go watch that and then come back and watch every other episode we have on YouTube, and then that'll balance it out. But it's excellent. You should watch it.
Watch all the other of our YouTube videos first, and then go watch it. I would say.
Yeah,
On
that's
several
fine.
devices all at once.
Yeah, different
Fingers
items.
and toes, people. Fingers scrolling to fingers and toes.
Yeah, excellent. Very good. A couple more names I'm going to throw out there, and you can take these or leave these, gents. Thomas Souček at West Ham. Does he run so that Jared Bowen can... Does he walk so that Jared Bowen can run? I'd maybe put him there when he's not getting red cards.
Yeah, he ran straight into João Paulinho's shins at the weekend.
I would argue he might be. And a classic one from the Ryan genre, he might be too flashy, but Toni Kroos. If he plays well, Real Madrid play well and win.
Too flashy.
Okay. How about Souček?
Yeah, that one I'm in.
Okay.
I mean, this can mean whatever you want it to mean.
Yeah,
like
it's
chemistry
true.
player.
It's true. Kroos is just like one of the best. That's why I rolled out Busquets, right? Like, Kroos is just one of the absolute best at his thing that this sport has ever seen. Like, not just of his era, but that he played so many games for an incredible team and did his thing on the ball so well every single game. Yeah, he's just too good. He's just too good. I mean, Muller probably is too good too, I suppose, if that's where we're drawing the line. But yeah, it's a tough one.
It does depend how you define chemistry, as you say, Graham. Like, because you could interpret it as the biggest personality, which could, in many ways, be a captain.
Yeah.
And that makes me think of even
Scott
players
Carson. He's the greatest chemistry player of all time.
Yes,
Absolutely. Or my mind, for some reason, went back to Tom Lockyer at Luton a few seasons back. He not flashy, but an integral part of the machine.
That made me think, Ryan, and Mason Mount tossed into this conversation makes me think, could we give Brendan Aronson a shout here as, like, surely he's got to be a teacher's pet wherever he goes, right? Like, everybody, you just can't not like the person who tries so hard. Like, every coach has to like that, and teammates have to respect that. It's like, I know this dude can't pass the ball, but he is amazing at running, and that makes my life so much easier. Like, that has got to be so endearing for the most part. Maybe incredibly frustrating too, but he's got to be on here somewhere.
Oh, A+ for effort, gang. We love it. Very good. Jory K, thank you very much indeed for your question. One more quick break. When we come back, we're talking about the people in the sports media who we love and Time Machine time. Let's get on that train. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our listener questions episode. Mike Zizou is back. Neither a relation of an underwater explorer or a famous French soccer player, we have found out. Thank you very much, Mike. Who are the members of the sports media who, when they speak, you think, oh man, I better listen? It goes without saying that my nominees are Joe Lowry, Graham Rutherman, and Taylor Rockwell. But apart from those guys, Joe, let's start with you. Who have you got?
Yeah, I mean, my go-to, I don't think this will surprise people, is Rio Ferdinand. Whenever he speaks, I make sure to listen.
Ballon d'Or.
I mean, that really, like, the insight packed into that is just almost too much. Like, I have to re-listen to it every once in a while because it's so hard. If it's not Rio Ferdinand or Jamie Carragher, I suppose I could run through another few folks out there. For me, and a lot of these are going to be more American soccer centric. I do have some European ones as well, though I'm very curious to hear what you guys have to say for this as well. Starting with American soccer, I still think the go-to voice in American soccer is Matt Doyle. Like, when Doyle writes about MLS or the USMNT, that is the thing that I will tend to read first. Doyle is really good at what he does. He's got the longevity to know a lot of stuff and to have a great perspective. That's one of the things I appreciate about him most, is that he's been around and watched MLS from the beginning. And so his ability to delineate eras and dynasties and to tie the present into the past, and MLS, a league that is always seemingly trying to run away from the past, I find to be really helpful and insightful. And he's a smart dude. So Doyle's on the list. Andrew Weeby's on the list as well. Like, really, really well connected, has put in so much work to understand the game really well and be able to communicate it quite effectively. Weeby, for both the insight he has into what I don't know and what most people don't know that happens behind the scenes, and for his like actual on-field insight and understanding of MLS and what happens on the field. I really, really respect the work that he's done. For MLS news, I'm just going to rattle through a few. Tom Bogart is the king of the hill. Tenorio's on that list as well, like Paul Tenorio at The Athletic does, and is better connected, it seems like, to the USMNT than most folks. Doug McIntyre as well, though, just at Fox, and Henry Bushnell, who's now at The Athletic, are excellent. And sort of those three I think of as, and Jeff Carlisle is of like kind of the standard bearers of USMNT reporting. And when those guys write something, you can bet I'm going to be listening. Michele Giannone, who was on the show a couple months back, knows both MLS and the USMNT very, very well. When Taylor Twellman says something on a broadcast that is like more reportery or newsy, you can bet I'm going to be listening to that. And the last sort of nominee, I'm sure I'm forgetting a bunch for American soccer, though, that I thought about was the folks over at American Soccer Analysis, who continue to do really, really good, helpful, nerdy stuff that helps us all understand the game better. They are absolutely on this list. I have European ones, but I want to hear, Graham and Ryan, yours first, and then if there are any left that you didn't say, I'll toss mine in at the end.
Sure, Graham, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've got a few nominations. By the way, not on my list, but Joe, when you mentioned Jamie Carragher, there was a piece about him. I can't remember who it was for. It might have been by The Athletic. It might have been for somewhere else. And they strongly made the case that he is the best mainstream pundit in football.
Yeah, he is. He is quite good. He is quite good.
Because he wears so many different hats. So not literally. Like, the job that he does is different depending on which broadcaster he's doing it for. And he's genuinely very good at everything. He's got 2 settings. So, yeah, exactly. So, like, clown, CBS, get clown, Jamie Carragher. The difference between... Joe, have you ever watched...
Bits and pieces.
Monday Night Football on Sky.
Yeah, bits and pieces, yeah.
If you watched a full episode of that,
yeah.
I bet you'd be shocked at the Jamie Carragher that Monday Night Football gets.
Carragher did the slot interview, right? After the first game of the season. Was that not
that's
him?
Right, yeah.
Like, I thought he was a bit forward with his assertions, but you play professional soccer for that club. Like, you can say whatever you want. I don't get to say that stuff. Like, I thought his interview was great. And, like, he highlighted the main tactical story from the game, which was, and for Liverpool as a whole at that time, of how on earth are they going to find enough balance in their structure to prevent attacks coming the other way. Tongue-in-cheek, because we do get sort of, like, silly Jamie Carragher on Champions League shows here in the U.S. He is, and I know him to be quite excellent at a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, on CBS on the Champions League this week, we had a minute or so of him scrolling through his phone, looking at DMs that I think it was Kylian Mbappe had sent him. Just that was. I mean,
he's just hanging out on that show, and people seem to.
More power to him, man. More power to him.
Jamie Carragher on Monday Night Football and then there'll be a whole team of people working on that show. But the way he works, he lays out like the analytics and the tactical stuff and the data is genuinely very impressive. Like he's an excellent communicator. So he wasn't on my list, but just because his name came up, and someone who is on my list over here in the UK is Niamh Petrozuelo. Now, the reason I'm stumbling over her name is she's better known as Stunt Peg, who is an outstanding analyst and is on YouTube and has had this really interesting career path where she's gone from YouTube, is now being used by Sky Sports. Ryan, she does videos with your boy Ellis Platten, Away Days. I've seen her on a few of those videos. She's got incredible knowledge of the game. She has such a broad knowledge of different leagues. I think her superpower is having like a real grasp of what players are good and bad at, and then like how they'll fit into teams. So around transfers, she's absolutely incredible, and she's had some incredible predictions which felt outlandish at the time, but then she explains why she thinks that's going to be the case, and they pan out like exactly as she projected. So she's incredible. I think the Tifo football guys are always great at laying out tactical things as well. So that's JJ Bull. It used to be Alex Stewart, now John McKenzie. John is so clever that sometimes it feels like he's speaking another language that I don't speak. But when he like lays out things in a video, he's very good at that. And Tifo in general do some great stuff. And then in MLS and in American soccer, I had Doyle, I had Tom for transfers, a lot of the same guys that Joe mentioned. Someone that I don't think he did mention, but John Mueller also does some great stuff. So he did a great piece for The Guardian on San Diego not so long ago. He also did one on Minnesota United and their set pieces and their long throw-ins, which I found really, really interesting. So he's great. So all these people that I've mentioned so far are like very analytical. I also enjoy kind of more conventionally like engaging just personalities. So Ian Wright, I think, is like a national treasure over here in the UK. And anytime him and Roy Keane are on a screen together, it's the unlikeliest of unlikely duos, the two of them. But they're great pals, and I just enjoyed spending time with them. And Wright is really good at highlighting the human side of the game as well. And the two of them bounce off each other really well. And then some
Graham, you have seen the Mr. Pigden video, right?
Oh man, the one where he doesn't know he's basically still alive, and he takes his hat off. It's
Listener,
incredible.
if you've not Google Ian Wright, Mr. Pigden, and prepare to have your heart melt. It's incredible.
Yeah, he's just a great guy, Ian Wright. He might be the most universally popular person in football, I think. And then some other names. Sid Lowe, I think anything he writes in The Guardian about Spanish football is worth reading. Andy Mitten, who works for The Athletic, is just tuned into Manchester United better than anyone else in the world, I think, and has great contacts. Amy Lawrence, similar on Arsenal, also works for The Athletic. And then just finally, without blowing smoke up our own backside here. Joe's and Ben Wright's winners and losers column at Backheeled every week is genuinely like must-read content for me. It's very, very funny. Joe, what was the one that I sent you? I'll send Joe lines every so often from his own piece. What was the one that, if Saturday was a fireworks show, goalkeepers, because there's so many goals on Saturday, like a record number of goals. Yeah. If Saturday was a fireworks show, goalkeepers across the league were skittish pups waiting for the loud noises to stop. I love that.
That's great.
So him and Ben do a great job of like looking at the league, because there's blooming 30 teams. It's so difficult to stay across everything. But the two of them do a great job of kind of condensing what the talking points are and looking at if there's any sort of trends across the whole league. So I enjoy that every week.
Yeah. Thanks, Graham. Checks in the mail, by the way. It's already sent.
Thanks.
Very good stuff.
That's very
nice. Puppy firework analogy king, Joe Lowry. We love it. Very good stuff indeed. I think you've covered most of the ground there, and I agree with most of those picks that you guys have had. I'll add that whereas a lot of the picks you've made there are sort of looking at the analytics and like game moments, perhaps. I think the way I read soccer media, or the way I absorb soccer media, I like the sort of introspective features as well. So Jonathan Liu at The Guardian is one I really enjoy reading, because I think he's an excellent writer, and he sort of writes more the introspective, sort of bigger picture stuff as well, which I think is really good. And I'll give another shout out to Sid Lowe, because I think he writes the best match reports in soccer. Like I look forward to Sunday nights or sometimes Monday mornings when you get to read his match reports, because they're not like, if you look at the construct of a match report, he doesn't follow it. Like the first couple of paragraphs are always they're in a different direction than you expect. I
think Sid is the best writer in football. And like I love Jonathan Liu, and I also love Barney Roney. I think they're kind of a similar category. Like it's very sort of irreverent sort of writers. Whereas Sid, just the way he lays out things, it feels very simple, but in a way that, I mean, if it was simple, everyone would write like that, and they don't. So I just think he's incredible.
Indeed. Agreed. Mike Zissou, thank you very much indeed for your question. One more for this episode. Jacobo Lobo? Is there too many O's? Who knows? I don't know. Jacobo Lobo says, a group of soccer-obsessed extraterrestrials with a time machine have asked the TSS crew to help settle a debate that's been raging in their space cantina. Which hypothetical all-time team is better? The best Spanish players to have never played for either Barcelona or Real Madrid, or the best German players who never played for Bayern Munich. The aliens aren't interested in young prospects, so active players under the age of 30 are not eligible for selection.
Finally, our time.
Here we go. Sorry,
29 is a young prospect? What is happening here?
It is in my book.
I like it.
Who is in your teams, and which team do you think is stronger? Asks Jacobo Lobo. I think, Graham, my head says the Germans, because if you look at the sort of currently over 30, so going back a little bit, historically, I'd say the Germans are probably more successful, and the power balance of Bayern in the Bundesliga compared to the power balance of Barcelona and Real Madrid combined in Spain is lesser, I would probably argue. Is that fair?
Yeah, so first of all, the way that I've built two teams here, and I have built two teams, is...
Of course you have.
I've not done it. I've not gone that far back, and if I have gone far back in a couple instances, it's like legends who I know. Maybe I didn't watch, but I know are like considered some of the best players in the world in their country. Otherwise, I just found it impossible. Like I was googling best ever German left backs, and it'd be a guy from the '60s who I'm sure was great and maybe should have made my team, but I don't know anything about that player. So, that was where I landed with this question. Instinctively, before I started building the two teams, I thought Spain would be stronger, just because there's no country in the world that produces talent like Spain. But maybe that is a factor, what you're saying, Ryan, of like, it's a fairly recent thing, right? That Spain are this just incredible talent machine across all age groups and across women's sport, football and men's football. That's a fairly like last 15 years sort of thing. And so actually I think the German team is stronger. So I'll lay out very quickly the two teams. So for Germany, I had Ter Stegen in goal. I went with a back three because I struggled for fullbacks. I went with a more conventional team for Spain. But I've got a back three of Antonio Rudiger, Per Mertesacker, and Matthias Sammer, who, Ryan, you'll remember from such decades as the 90s.
You're a 96 player, wasn't he? I'm pretty sure. Was he at Dortmund
around that time? Yeah, Dortmund, I think. And then my fullbacks have gone for Andre Schürrle on the left, and then this is someone who I didn't watch, a former Scotland manager, Bertie Vogts, who I know is one of the best players in his position. He was a right back, so I've gone for Bertie Vogts as a wing back. Then I've gone for Bernd Schuster, again in central midfield, not someone that I watch, but I know he's considered one of the best midfielders of all time. And then I've gone for Ilkay Gundogan, Mesut Ozil, Marco Reus, and then up front, Rudi Voller. And then my Spanish team is in goal, David De Gea. Left back, Joan Capdevila, who was left back when Spain won the first World Cup. Then I've got Aymeric Laporte, Carlos Marchena, I think is how you say that. He was Valencia centre back when they were good under Rafa Benitez. I've got Jesus Navas as a right back. Then in midfield I've got Koke. I've got David Albelda, who was similar to Marchena, was at Valencia at that time. Then I've got Santi Cazorla, David Silva, Joaquin, and then up front, peak Fernando Torres. That's from our number 9. So as much as the idea of Silva, in particular Silva and Torres, was enticing, I think just on like name recognition, I probably have to go for the Germans.
Okay,
That's tight.
Joe?
That's tight. I also built teams, and I tilted even more heavily to the present day because I don't know. I don't know how to do it any other way. And basically, I came away a little bit more convinced by the Spanish team, but I don't think it is a huge gap. So I'll say Spain just to disagree with Graham. But my team, I had a lot of similar names on both of these lists, but not entirely the same. For Spain, to start with them, goalkeeper David De Gea. Then I had Navas and Azpilicueta as my 2 fullbacks. I had Laporte in the middle of the back line and Pau Torres as well. There's got to be some recency bias there. I'm aware of that, but not a bad player. In midfield, I had a 3-man midfield of David Silva, Koke, and Santi Cazorla. And then I had Fernando Torres up top with Iago Aspas off one wing and Gerard Moreno off the other wing. That's just a fun team. I just want to see that team play soccer. The fact that Rodri, the young pup that he is, missed this team at age 29 is a crime, but here we are. My German team is Ter Stegen in goal. I had Rudiger and Mertesacker as well. I had Matthias Ginter and Shakran Mustafi rounding up my back line. We're just loaded up on center backs. It's full pet mode. I've got him coaching this team. I've got Gundogan at the base of midfield with Ozil and Royce. I don't think, Graham, did you say Royce? You did, right?
I did, yes.
Okay, that's my midfield 3, so I think we had all those same players. And then in the attack, this is where it feels a little bit weaker for Germany. I have Niklas Füllkrug, I have Kevin Volland, and I have Timo Werner. I know those cannot be the best 3 German attackers who didn't play for Bayern Munich, but I don't really know a super convincing trio that's better than that. Maybe you move Moko Royce into the forward line and you add another midfielder on. That probably would have been a better squad-building move. But I think the Spanish midfield is excellent. I think the German one is too. But I am more convinced by the attackers that have popped up for Spain than I am for Germany. And so that's why I've tended to go towards the Spanish. But I think we're in for a good game. Like I think this would be a very, very good game between 2 excellent teams.
I think the way I look at this question is if we are looking at very recent history, then it's a very close game, possibly Spain edge it. But if you go back to like the 70s onwards, it's pretty German.
Yeah, and in particular with that attack, so I agree the players, like the recent German attackers are not up to the level of the Spanish ones, but that's where guys like Rudi Voller and the other one who was on my list was Oliver Bierhoff, Ryan, who you'll remember again from the 90s, right? He was decent around that time. These guys were, particularly Voller, was like one of the best players of his generation, so never watched Voller, really, but I'm led to believe that he was excellent, so he'd surely elevate the level.
There's just one thing I don't get, and that is that these soccer-obsessed extraterrestrials, they looking back at these 2 teams, why did they need the time machine? Like, they could just remember these things.
Just cooler to go.
It is
cool
cooler.
to see it in person, you know? Gotta see it to believe it, that sort of thing.
If the DeLorean's there, you've got to use it.
Also, I guess the premise is they're going to go back and collect them all and have them play outside the cantina.
So we can find out for sure.
Yeah. There we go.
I
They're
mean,
going to play it out. Got it.
We could just call like half the Spanish team in particular still around, like Fernando Torres. Although he doesn't play soccer anymore. If it's like a bench pressing competition, then Fernando Torres is in. But
what's Jesus Navas up to these days?
He's still.
Yeah,
He retired last season, didn't he?
No, he didn't. Still playing. It's got to be. It's impossible.
Got to be somewhere.
Still playing.
Can't retire those eyes.
Woo. For all we know.
There we go. Together Lobo, thank you very much indeed for your question. Thank you to everybody who has submitted a question for this here Listener Questions episode. If you would like to do so, TotalSoccerShow.com/questions is a very good place to go. An even better place to go, in my opinion. Patreon.com/TotalSoccerShow. You can visit our Discord, have a chat with us, leave a question in there as well. We appreciate you very much indeed for doing so. But for now, Joe Larry, thank you very much indeed for your expertise on this here episode.
Hey, thanks, Ryan.
Thank you very much, Graham Ruthven.
Thank you, Ryan Bailey.
And thank you very much, listener, for joining us on this one. We'll be back on the feed very shortly, but for now, bye.